Hey guys, what's up? Channer here again, and today we're going to be talking about Barbarian stats. We're going to be talking about what stats are good, what stats aren't good, and where each of those stats should go. Before we get started, there are all different builds with the Barbarians. You could play Furious Charge right now is the cookie cutter build, but the stats in general can be applied to almost every build. There might be a few changes, like one build you might need a different amount of cooldown reduction, and you might be playing around with different elemental damage, or different skills. Like this one's Furious Charge. If you were playing Leap Quake, you'd want to get earthquake damage on your shoulders and maybe your chest, right? Alright, so with that said, let's just hop right into it, guys. Let's just hop right into it. We're gonna start off with the most important thing, and that is a weapon. Now, before we get started, I want to say something that everyone should know, is that when you're looking at a weapon, especially for a barbarian, it does depend on the skill you're using, but skills are calculated by weapon percent damage. Alright, so if you look at a skill like Furious Charge, well, I mean, I can't really show that one because Furious Charge with the Raycore set it's not 600%. It gets the 1050% applied to it because Raycore set applies every rune to it. So it's 1050% weapon damage is fire. So that's a multiplicative of not your DPS, but the number below that, the 3799 to 4464. That's what is calculated. So attack speed on a weapon will raise the DPS, but it won't touch that number. It won't touch that average damage. So it kind of falsely inflates the DPS. So be careful with that. Getting attack speed on a weapon, even though it raises your DPS on the weapon, falsely, like I said, it's like the same as getting attack speed on your gloves, which doesn't raise your weapon DPS, right? Okay. So with that said, I mean, there are some builds and some classes out there that can make use of attack speed, and it is good in some senses. Like attack speed adds flat damage to Call of the Ancients, and that could work out in a sense. But anyways, let's just get to the weapon stats. Alright, so the three really big stats are, first, the average damage. The stat right underneath the word primary, the first stat. Average damage, that's really important. I mean, it could roll, really towards the bottom end on the minimum and maximum. Each have their own rolls, so you could get a really low minimum maximum, you could get a really high one. You can only see the lowest minimum damage roll that you can get and the highest maximum damage roll you can get here. So in order to see what the rolls can be, you gotta go to the Enchantress on an unenchanted weapon and select the damage and see what you could potentially get. But when you get a roll that's really low, like almost next to the minimum rolls, and you don't have percent damage, you're probably better off rolling the average damage up. And there is an equation to figure that out. I'll put it in the description, so if you ever run into a situation like that, you could use the calculation and that'll help you. The next stats that are important, strength is actually really important here because you can get a huge amount of strength, and strength is really good. I mean, for each point of strength you're getting 1% damage. Now everything is calculated really weird in Diablo. There's all different pools, so there are certain things that all get added up into a pool. So if you have like 9,431% here, and then another thing in the same pool gives like 1,000%, it's all added up, and then that percentage is multiplied by whatever your weapon damage, and then the next pool gets added up and multiplied by that result, and then the next pool. So certain increases are in certain pools. And there is a really good forum post, and again, I will link that in the description below. So if you want to understand like where each source of damage comes from, like if you look at a gem like Toxin Gem that all enemies you poison take 10% increased damage from all sources, that's in the debuff pool. That is in the debuff pool. So something like strong arm bracers would share that pool. So if you had strong arm bracers that makes mobs take 30% extra damage after being knocked back, then it would get added to also the toxin gem. That would get added to 40% increase instead of multiplying it by 30% and then taking that result and multiplying it by 10%. Things don't work like that. So if you really want to get technical about it and you really want to understand how everything is calculated, because you know the game is really complex and all the mathematics are kind of just made up, and it's, you know, it gets a little confusing. There's just a lot to it. Like I said, if you want to understand it, then I'll put the link in the description below. You could check that out and read up on it. Really good information to have. Really good information to have. If not, you really don't have to understand it. You just need to know what's the meta and, you know, what's best. Like something like Bane of the Trapped, and the reason why it's so good is it's in its own pool. It's in its own. So basically, it's just another multiplicative by itself, which will, you know, not get added up with other percentages and then multiplied. It'll be a separate multiplicative, because every time you multiply your damage, you're getting a bigger increase. If you just took all your increases, added all that stuff up, and then multiplied it by your weapon damage, it wouldn't be as high as some of the results we get here, if that makes any sense. So I'm glad you guys understand all that now. Let's just talk about the best stats. I'm just going to try to go over them without as much detail as I possibly could, just purely because this video would be really long if I talked about each individual stat. Alright, so on your weapons, stats that are really good, like I said, average damage, percent damage, and strength. Now, percent damage is going to be better than something like elite damage, because percent damage adds straight to your weapon damage, which is where your damage starts. So by increasing that base number, you're making each point of elite damage worth more. And that's why percent damage is going to be better. And it's also going to add damage to white mobs. So all around, just better. You got to prioritize that before elite damage. Now on my furnace, I could get elite damage instead of cooldown reduction, but in some cases you just want cooldown reduction. In some cases you don't need it. It really depends on your build. For the build I'm playing, Furious Charge, you only need like 37% cooldown reduction so that you could reset your charge when hitting 3 mobs. But the more you get, the better. You can get more uptime on your Wrath and your Call of the Ancients. If you're using Chylanic Chain, 50% cooldown reduction, and you can keep the movement speed buff up 100% of the time. So I have almost 50% to do that. So it's going to increase the speed of my runs that way. And, you know, it has to be very tailored to your spec and what exactly are you doing. Now, what makes other weapons good that aren't furnace is that they could roll elemental skill, like the Maximus has fire skill. That's another good prioritization. So on this Maximus right here, those are the best stats that you could want. You want obviously the fire skill, the percent damage, the strength, and a socket. You could get an extra stat, which is a socket, through an item called a gift. It drops in Torment, and it's just a consumable item. You right click it, you apply it to a weapon that doesn't have a socket. So if you have a socket rolled onto a weapon when it drops and you don't roll that off and you re-roll a different stat, you'll never be able to gift that weapon and get the 5th stat. So be careful with that. So like I said, cooldown reduction, elite damage as the last thing. But those are all the good stats on weapons. Like I said, attack speed, secondary stat on a weapon, life after kill, is a really good source of healing. It's really powerful, better than you think. So definitely, if you could get that, it's really nice. It's not something you should prioritize or really worry about, but when comparing, like, should I use this weapon or that weapon, consider life after kill, because it's going to be a lot of healing when you got it on multiple pieces of gear, or at least have it on your weapon. You're going to be killing little bullshit white mobs and getting healed for tons. Alright, let's go over rings, and I'm not going to go over the SOJ, because my SOJ right here isn't perfect. If I got like a natural socket, I could have re-rolled the strength to crit damage or cooldown reduction. I actually have a fire skill SOJ that has 40% crit damage, 20 fire, 30 elite damage. That's a really good one. But unity right here, a really good unity is the 6 crit chance, the 15 elite damage, and then either the cooldown, the crit damage, or the crit chance. Crit damage and crit chance you want on a 1 crit chance to 10 crit damage ratio, just because they work off each other. If you had 1,000 crit damage but you had 1% crit chance, then neither of those, like, well, crit chance would start to become worth a ton, but 1,000 crit chance is going to be worth, you're going to be way better getting 50 crit chance and 500 crit damage, because they work off each other. So try to keep that, you know, relatively even. Alright, let's just go along the way. Raycore gloves. Well, gloves in general, but gloves in general, you want the strength, the crit damage, the crit chance, and the cooldown. That's standard. That's pretty much all the way around. Just the best stats you could get. This doesn't really change along the lines anywhere, unless you start looking at other gloves, but even other gloves for a barb usually aren't worth using. Okay. Shoulders. Vile words for this particular build, you know, it's furious charge damage. But getting the strength, vitality, and vitality is worth a little more than all res on items, because if you look at a gem, a vitality gem gives you like 200 and something. The 280 for the max vitality gem, but a resistance gem gives you 78 resistance. So on a piece of gear, the vitality is pretty much doubled, the resistance isn't. Anyways, just comparing it mathematically for survivability and everything, vitality is worth a little more. So strength, vitality, get that cooldown reduction on your shoulders, it's great. And then whatever main skill you're using, it depends on your skill and what pool it rolls into, because there are certain skills that go on, you know, your shoulders and your chest, and those are connected. And there are other skills that could be on your helm and your boots, and then your pants and your belt. Those are like generator, like fury generator, like your main skills, the really, really low damage ones, and usually you're never worrying about those. Okay, so that's shoulders. Helm. We're looking for strength, vitality, crit chance. And that's pretty standard. Again, vitality, especially on the helm, is worth way more than like resist or whatever. But those are the priority stats. If you happen to get strength, all res, crit chance, it's usable. You can do it, whatever, you know. Just you know, try to get these stats. But strength and crit chance are the most important on the helm. We're going to go to chest. Alright, again, we're going to go for the strength and vitality and the furious charge damage again. Again, 3 sockets. 3 sockets, extremely important here. And now this is where, if you needed the resistance, this is where you get it. You slot the resistance into your sockets on your chest and your pants. If you needed it. If not, you go with the rubies. Alright, belt. On the belt, we're going to be going with strength, vitality, all res, and life percent. Life percent instead of life per fury, because life per fury, we're getting like 5k from the ignorance is bliss. The 1k or so that you can get on the belt, it's not big enough to matter. So the percent life, getting 15% life is really big, especially when you're getting all the vitality everywhere else. It's just worth more in terms of survivability. Pants, very standard, strength, vitality, resist, sockets. Boots, we're going to want strength, vitality, resist, and movement speed. Now, movement speed, getting that allows it so that in your Paragon points, you don't have to put as many points into movement speed. Alright, actually, I need to reset that. So, by saving, let's see, I need to get 15 points here. Okay, so by saving 20 points of movement speed, I'm getting an extra 100 strength on my boots, essentially. Now, in other builds, I mean, if there is something you could put like whirlwind damage there if you want a whirlwind build, then by far that would be better. But if that's not the case and you're not using a skill on the boot slots, get the movement speed, because you get essentially an extra 100 strength out of it, and it's pretty good. Let's go ahead and max that up. By the way, shift clicking when you're adding points puts them in at 10 at a time. So just a little tip. Alright, we already went over the ring. Bracers, pretty standard. Actually, these bracers are wrong, but I was just doing T6, so I was being lazy and just leaving the Nemesis bracers. These aren't my normal bracers. Anyways, elemental damage, strength, vitality again over resistance, even though I have resistance there. That's not right. It's just I'm using these because of the high damage on them. And crit chance, 6% crit chance. And yeah, that's just pretty standard again, like I said. Okay, and now necklace. There's a ton of different necklaces for all different things that you could do. And generally the best stat, well, this necklace actually rolls 1 extra stat, and this necklace is extremely hard to get. Crit damage is the #1 stat on a necklace. Socket is the #2 stat. So crit damage and socket, you always want those on every necklace. And crit damage is so important because we're using a two-hander. We only have 1 crit damage gem instead of having 2. So we're gonna have lower crit chance, crit damage to crit chance. And remember, I said we want this 1 to 10 ratio, just to make them kind of work off each other and get the most out of each stat. If you have 60, if you only have like 300 crit damage and you have like 55 crit chance, you're not getting the most out of those stats. So crit damage and socket, most important. And then after that, you want the crit chance. After that comes elemental damage. After that comes strength. And then, you know, you could rotate here and there what you want. If you need cooldown, you could replace one of those stats for cooldown. I think with the new ancient items, if you manage to get like 1,000 strength, it's worth a little bit more than elemental skill. I haven't done the calculations yet, honestly. It's something new. So don't quote me on that. It's going to be really even, but I'll try to find out and put an annotation. I apologize for that. I completely forgot. But with necklaces, again, there's all different types of necklaces, immunity necklaces, and all these different things. Like I said, just try to prioritize on the socket and the crit damage. Those are very important. You definitely want the 3 sockets between all your jewelry and almost every build, because there's so many good gems that you could use, and they're just worth so much more than regular stats. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. That's pretty much it. Those are my stats. What you guys should be looking at. I apologize, this video was a little bit long, but I just wanted to go into detail with each stat that you should be looking for on each piece of gear, just so you guys can get a better understanding, and instead of having to ask what's best, you understand what's best and why it's best, because understanding things in Diablo is what's going to make you a good player. So if you got to this point in the video, I have to say, you know, or if you've been watching my videos in full, there's a lot of people who don't and just want instant gratification, and that's not how you learn. That's not how you become a better player. I know all this stuff because I've been putting in like 10 hours a day for the past year in Diablo. I have over 3,000 hours. I didn't come to know all this by looking at a little 5-minute video. It's a lot of things that you need to know in Diablo to really understand and play the game well. So thank you guys, and I really, you know, anyone who got here, I'm really happy that you took the time out of your day to actually fully hear me out, and that is awesome, guys. So thank you so much. If you want, like, subscribe, share. Like I said, I hope this video was helpful. If you want, leave a comment below. I'll try to get to all of them. Honestly, I've been getting a lot of comments lately, and it's been getting a little hard for me to keep up, but I am trying my best. I'll try over time. I might not get back to you right away, but I will try over time to get to what you guys are asking. If you want, you could always check out my live stream at twitch.tv/chainerfails. You know, I'm there, so if I'm there and you got some questions, Not general questions, because if you ask me something like how do I play the Barbarian or how do I improve, like I said, I could talk for days and days and days. So, you know, very specific questions like, you know, I don't know. Something very specific, like how does strong arm work? How does strong arm bracers work now? Something like that. And by the way they work, by your Furious Charge doesn't pull anymore, so the mobs you charge through don't get strong arm bracer debuff. But the mobs that you hit at the end with the frontal cone, you can see the little animation of a frontal cone like along there, get knocked up into the air, and those mobs that get knocked up get the debuff and take more damage. So, you know, things like that that I can answer, you know, within reasonable time, because I am trying to do a lot of different things, and I've been putting a lot of work into my stream recently and into YouTube, and I want to thank you guys because I've been getting a really big increase in viewership, and you guys have been really awesome, and just keep watching. I'll keep doing what I'm doing, and really awesome, guys, really awesome. Thank you so much, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.